You are listening to the Zeebzob Pinewood Derby Roundup Episode 3, sponsored by Goat Boy Products, makers of high-quality Pinewood Derby tools. This week's special guest, Quadad. And now, here is your host, Zeebzob. Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the Zeebzob podcast. This is episode number 3 with special guest Quadad. That interview will be coming up in just a few minutes. I want to remind everybody to go to zeebzob.proboards.com to join the forum and the discussions about Pinewood Derby that's not necessarily associated to one specific league. Also, the blog that the podcasts are going to is zeebzob.wordpress.com. And again, my Twitter account is @Zeebzob. So go ahead and follow me there. Since the last episode, I have not gotten any new followers. So again, a little hint, it's @Zeebzob for my Twitter account. I did, however, get a few more people to join up the forum. Again, that's zeebzob.proboards.com. Okay, on with today's show. What we will talk about briefly here, since this is the Christmas season, leagues are kind of shut down over the holidays. Not much going on as far as any new racing news or anything. But I'll take a look quickly at the schedules for the 3 leagues. What's been posted. Some of them haven't even put theirs out yet because it's still right as I'm taping this between Christmas and New Year. But at NPWDRL, they've published their schedule for 2015. The beginning of the year, they're going to have what they're calling the ICE Series. It's a 3-month points series event starting on January 24th. Second race is February 28th, and that's going to be a double points race. And then a triple points race on March 28th, so just a month after that second one. And then April 24th, Mid-America Nationals, which is being held in conjunction with NPWDRL, and that's going to be in Omaha, Nebraska. So again, that's something I'm hoping to go live to, along with a lot of the other guys from the Zeebzob Speed Shop. So if you can make it out there, that would be great to get a lot of racers out there live. There's nothing like a live event. I mean, proxy racing, it's great for giving everybody the outlet, but going to a live race, if you've never done it, I highly suggest trying to get to one, and the Nationals would be a great one because a lot of people are planning to go live, and it's pretty central as far as the United States. They're in Omaha, so it's about a 10-hour drive from us here in Wisconsin. But we went last year, and it was a really great time, so we're looking forward to that. Then NPWDRL is going to have what's called the Fire Series over their summer months, starting on June 13th. Then July 11th is going to be a double points race. The next race will be August 15th. And then September 12th will be their triple points championship race. So that should be a good series then. Now, again, as I'm taping this between Christmas and New Year's, that's the schedule. Things do come up sometimes, and it may change. So check back to npwdrl.com for all the latest dates. And if there is a change in dates, I will update you as well with the podcasts. Over at PDDR, they haven't set the full schedule yet, but they say, Glenn says, January they're going to start up again, so I'm sure they're going to post those pretty quickly. And then over at APR, Terry and his crew will get started in late February, but again, they have not posted the full schedule either. Looks like they're going to take the month of January off, maybe have a test and tune session. They did that last year. So again, for PDDR, that's going to be in January, and you can go to pddr.proboards.com for information there. And then over at APR, they are apr.boards.net. So those are the sites for their forums. Go ahead and check them out for the latest information. Okay. And as I said, this time of year there's not much going on as far as Pinewood Derby racing. It's a little slow. So I guess I just want to hope that everybody had a Merry Christmas and have a Happy New Year coming up. As far as myself, Santa was good to me. I got a really huge new toolbox. So that's going to be out in my garage, and I'm going to have to try to fill it now, which is, that's always fun. So, and maybe it'll help me get a little more organized. If any of you have ever seen the Zeebzob Speed Shop, the actual work area, it's usually quite a mess, and anything I could do to help keep organized, I guess, would be a big plus. But other than that, for me, there's not much going on. As far as the podcasts, again, a lot of you have been very positive with your comments and everything towards that. So, last week's episode was real good with Todd Meyer, E3. I probably could have cut that up into two different parts, because I guess if there were any complaints, it was that maybe that one was a little bit long. But that's how it goes. This is a learning process for me. So, on to this week's guest. I had the privilege of interviewing Mario Rinaldi, known as Quadad. So let's give a listen to that. Yeah, I'd like to welcome to the Zeebzob Studios Mr. Mario Rinaldi, known as Quadad. Hello, Mario.
How you doing, Andy?
I'm doing well. So thank you for taking the time to do this with me. I think it should be a lot of fun. So let's touch on Quadad. Do you have 4 children?
Yeah.
How old are they?
Yeah. Oh, you want my normal line is that the youngest is now 15, the oldest is 15, and the 2 in between are 15.
All 4 kids at once.
Yeah.
That is insane. How do you do it?
Just like anybody else, every day is one day at a time, and you do what you got to do.
Yeah. I can't imagine now. Our kids go to the same school, and my boy is 1 year older, and he just started driving. So that's one kid driving, and it's just, for me, the last few weeks have just been nuts, fixing cars, just shelling out money for this or for that. I couldn't imagine 4 at once.
Yeah, I don't know. I started a conversation with the insurance people, but just to kind of find out what we can do, but it's going to be bad.
Yeah, I feel sorry for you. But let's talk about your Pinewood Derby racing. I assume you got into it like everybody else, because you're heavily involved with the Scouts, and of your 4 kids, 3 of them are boys.
Right.
So I guess, were they all Scouts or just a couple of them? How did that come about?
Yeah, all 3 boys started off in Cub Scouts, and I had absolutely zero background in scouting, and so everything for me was, first time, lifetime, with zero background, and the Pinewood Derby story begins when they first brought it up, and in a scout meeting, and I just froze, because here's how naive I was. The image in my mind was soapbox derby cars, and they had said how every kid has to build a car, and I thought, oh my God, how are we going to make three of those things
Yeah.
and get that done, along with normal life? And so I was quite worried about that.
So what did you think when they come home with this little block of wood?
Yeah, well, I was there for the handout and all, and I didn't get involved on the adult leader side that first year, but I was still pretty involved as a parent. And any event, when they brought the little cars home, you know, basically I'd have been dead if it wasn't for the internet, because yeah, again, I didn't know anything about them. I didn't know how to build them, how to
Sure.
shape them, how to do anything. And the weird thing is that where we live in scouting, Pinewood Derby is really not that big of a deal. So it's not, even though it's a fun thing, it's not near as competitive as the area in Illinois where I work, like 75 miles away, which is ultra competitive in Pinewood Derby, and a really big deal. So around here, it's like, yeah, you can build a car, and here's our rules, and if you want to ask a question, it's like, why are you asking a question?
So then it must have been a relief that it wasn't a soapbox car, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a big deal.
Okay, so then you mentioned without the internet, you'd have been lost. Where did you go first?
So I think that very first year, I downloaded some car plans from Max V.
Okay.
And of course, and this is kind of the style for us, had to have three different designs for the three different boys. And in fact, my daughter built a car pretty much, I think, every year along with the boys, because she was never one to miss anything, and always was and is ultra competitive with her brothers.
Sure.
In fact, in certain areas, she was one of my best builders. She loved, drilling out weight pockets and anything where you can kind of like crunch and do stuff. And it's like, wow, I wish the boys were this aggressive about.
That's funny. So then, so you said you got the plans from Max V, and then as far as forums, I know you were early on Derby Talk.
Yeah. I think I don't know how I found it, but I did find it, and that's where I started to learn a lot more with a lot of other, Cub Scout dads.
Mm-hmm.
And I fairly quickly linked up with Sporty, who actually lives about an hour from where I work.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll touch on this a little bit later. It comes into play, but you live in southeastern Wisconsin, the Milwaukee area, but you work near Rockford.
Right, I work in Rockford.
In Rockford, okay.
Illinois, yeah.
Yeah, but you don't go in every day?
No.
That's got to be nice, because that would be,
yeah.
Would that be a chore every day, 75 miles?
Yeah, it wouldn't work that way. So I'm pretty much, unless business requires otherwise, I drive in Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Okay. Yeah, and you are an electrical engineer.
Yes.
And we'll talk about that in a bit when we start talking about the nationals and the repair jobs we were doing last minute. But back to, so you said you hooked up with Sporty.
Yep.
And you learned some techniques from him?
Yeah, and, that was probably like 2009, 2010. And a lot of the stuff done today was pretty, much getting developed at that time. And I remember, working on how to rail ride early on, and how to cant the front dominant wheel, which way was faster, and all that kind of stuff. And so it was pretty formative compared to today, where people are obviously making a lot of speed and advances, but there was a lot of basic stuff getting worked on there.
When you got more into running leagues and you met Sporty and Murph, you formed a little team.
Yeah, well, I would put it like, Murph and Sporty got together, and I really wasn't involved in the very beginning of that. And, there you had two very hardcore, very, max effort guys involved. And I was constantly getting encouraged by them to race league-wise, and even though obviously like a lot of people we had success at the Cub Scout level,
Sure.
that's a whole different thing. And so it took me a while to actually build and send in cars, and so it wasn't until like I don't know, maybe August, September of 2010 when I first started sending in cars, and that was about the time that I think Murph and Sporty had been doing pretty well, and though there was some relationship issues there, and I came in to help give a boost, primarily in the pure stock side. This was at PWDR,
Sure.
and it all worked out because by the end of the year, the team, along with one other guy called Buck, or known as Woodworks, yeah, his name actually is Buck, he was a key contributor in the area of, since he was I think, custom cabinet maker, he gave us beautiful, perfectly plumbed square blocks to build
sure.
cars from. And that allowed us to drill certain ways and things. And any event, the team overall with accumulated points, and there wasn't as many rules on number of participants, whatever, the team ended up taking first in both pure stock and limited that year. So that was pretty cool for me, first time joining in. Even though I wasn't a main guy, I got my feet wet.
Sure.
And I think you mentioned the nationals out here a couple years ago, but I remember telling John the story of that December race when it was really close on us, the team winning those two classes. And I had figured out, where we needed to finish relative to the people close to us. But the big boys from PDDR came in that month and just creamed us, I think, finish-wise. But they didn't impact the standings because they weren't in the league for the year or whatever. So even though we kind of got waxed overall, I forget how it went. If we took a fifth here versus a seventh of the other team, that's all we needed to do to take first place. But I remember being somewhat, or more than somewhat, fearful of the big boys from PDDR at the time.
We talked about that a couple of times because that's where I started racing was PDDR, and you had always raced at PWDR, and you had said that those guys came in and just laid waste. But yeah, so I mean that's kind of an interesting thing. And speaking of PWDR, I mean, do you know what's going on with that? I haven't looked at their site in a while, but
I did glance not too long ago, and I thought they had quite a few cars for a late, season race. I didn't really recognize the majority of the racers, but they still seem to be alive and
really?
In some form. So maybe you ought to keep them on the list.
Huh. So now is Warren running that again out of Minnesota? I don't even know
You
how
know,
that's.
I would assume so, but I just stuck my nose in at the race results and haven't really paid attention. You know, I think their forum is pretty moribund, whatever, and
Hmm.
but they're still having races. That's all
Really?
I know.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I'll stop in and check it out. But I haven't really looked at their site in a long time. Yeah, ever since it, went to Lucky 13 and then
Hmm.
Evolution, and then I heard it went back to Warren, but haven't heard much about it. At any rate, so then that was your introduction into league racing,
Right.
and then when I guess did you start getting into other classes and then setting into other leagues? I'm just trying to remember like when you and I met, and
Yeah, so
then.
that was probably late 2011 when I really wasn't doing any racing, but most of 2011 I started making some electronic stuff for
Mhm.
Pinewood Derby. You know, I made a light tree for our
Sure.
Cub Scout pack and the solenoid release and some stuff like that. And that's obviously a hobby of mine. And and then what really attracted me to the other classes was these really awesome looking wheels that the Razor cars had. You
Sure.
know, all these colors and shine, and they just look so cool. And you know, the freedom of the way you can build a car of that style. I was just really wanting to build one, and so um, I think I ordered parts from John,
Hmm.
and that included Ian's wheels. And I think I did get a hold of Ian.
And this is before you knew him?
Yeah, I'd
Okay.
only heard of him
Sure.
through Sporty, I think, and because he also is in Illinois, actually not far from where I was working, and and I think the funny thing was that's when Ian told me, "Hey, you ought to talk to Andy. He's in your neighborhood."
Yeah, that's what. And my side of that is, I'm talking to Ian one time. He's like, "Yeah, I was talking to this guy named Mario. It goes by Quadad." And then Ian says, "What's the actual name of the town you live in?" Because my mailing address is Mukwonago, but I live in the town of Vernon. And he said, "Yeah, Mario said he lives in Vernon." And I thought, I think that's where Andy lives. And I thought, well, what are the chances of that? First of all, that you work in Rockford and you contact Ian first.
Yeah,
And as it turns out, you're 10 minutes from me, if
yeah,
that. I think you're a
yeah.
little less. And the funny thing is, when I first started talking to you, you said, "Well, do you know where Center Drive is?" Because you're right off of Center,
Right.
and I'm right off of Center, but just a little bit further south. So I'm thinking, no way, this has got to be a setup. There's no way some other
Yeah.
guy, this close to me has the same Pinewood Derby fascination that I do. So
Yeah, that's
that was pretty
it
funny.
was funny, and you know that I don't know if that was the first time I came over here, but I'll never remember or forget getting all these parts for the bearing car, and I had a body drilled out and shaped and probably painted. I don't remember now, but I didn't have a clue how to put the bearings in,
Sure.
and I couldn't get the solid rear axle in, and
Yeah.
so I basically came here with a handful of parts and said, "Help me, please." You know? And then
uh,
you guys, helped me put that first car together.
well, it was a lot with you. Ian already started having success in the bearings, but I still sucked
At the
terribly.
first.
But then I don't know, was that 2011 or 12 that John had team racing?
I think it was
I think it
12,
was
yeah.
12.
And then
Okay.
it didn't start immediately. It must have been a
Yeah,
little way into the year,
yeah,
a
and
couple months in,
I could
whatever.
I could probably do a whole future podcast on team racing. It was a lot of fun, and just to give a little background, John at NPWDRL always wanted to have a team race where you get 4 or 5 guys as a team, send in some cars, then they'd race them and collect team points. And well, it was actually kind of cool because Ian was our captain, and we actually had a draft day, and
Right.
I think he had to trade for you because
Right.
he picked me right off the bat, and then you were picked, and then he had to make a trade. So, anyways, it was Ian, Mario, myself, and Down for Derby. We were the Sofa King Fast race team.
Yeah,
So
that was a great name. But yeah, and Scott was our rookie. Every
was.
team had to have a
he
rookie.
was our rookie, and he took me to school.
Well, but he really surprised us because we kind of gave him that um, street stock whatever
Sure.
class, and he did a great job
Oh, he did
with
a
it,
fantastic job.
and we didn't don't think any of us knew much about him at all before
No.
it started, but we became good friends as a team, and you're going to talk more about it later, but the reality is we've never, I think, lost that team feeling, and even though that was a one-year deal, when anyone from the team, wins something or does really well, we all kind of feel good about that. And
Oh yeah,
sharing that.
when he won the street rod man of the mountain, I was so
Yeah.
happy for him. He's such a great guy.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really interesting. And the thing of it is, the three of us, me, you, and Ian, we're all from right around here, test here,
Right.
and Scott's out in California.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was the guy way out there that would kind of correspond over phone or texts or whatever. But the interesting thing is that first race. Now, Ian, of course, was going to be our bearing guy, and as you said, Scott was the street stock. You did the eliminators, and I did the street pro.
Well, actually, I don't know. My memory is never great, but I remember Ian being very gracious, and he said, "Mario, what do you want to do,
Oh, that's right.
Eliminator
Yeah, you're right.
or Unlimited?" And I thought, well, I really want to do the bearing car because this is what's new and exciting and interesting for me, and it's all about having fun. So he said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do the Eliminator." And then it didn't happen.
Well, well, that first race, he was incredibly busy at
Yeah,
work.
he
and
was working a ton.
So you made the eliminator and the bearing car
Yeah.
just that first time. After
Yeah.
that, we all had one
Yeah.
car each. And that's how you got Hearst, which
Right.
is still to this day an incredibly fast car.
Yeah, it all worked out, and unfortunately, from my side, I was perennially 10 milliseconds slow, at least in an eliminator.
I know the feeling.
but
yeah.
yeah, because we were a bunch of bearing car builders here.
Right. And then, so with that, you built Hearst, and I really started taking a close look at what you guys were doing, because my
Yeah.
dairy program was pure crap. And then in the October of 2012, the Halloween Havoc
Yeah.
race, we all sent in 2 cars, you, Ian, and myself, and 8 cars went to the finals,
Yeah.
and we had 6 of those
Yeah.
8. And that, to me, that was like the starting point of Ian already had been very good at the bearings.
Yeah,
as you
he was
call them.
always there.
When it was Ian's turn in the team racing, I remember being in chat. We're kind of down in the standings a little bit. Scott put us up high. Me and you dropped us.
Yeah.
And then Mario goes, "All right, now it's time to let the big fish swim."
Yeah.
And then that was the end.
Yeah, it was, and we were at least competitive, and that's when we started basically saying we want to be in the hunt,
in the hunt.
just
That's right.
just to be close, just to be competitive, and that was a big thing. My probably personal highlight that year was I don't know if it was that October, around that time. I was running Sport T, that green car,
Sure.
and Kinzer was like waxing the field and everything that year, and I ended up, I think, being tied with Kinzer, and we ended up having, like, I don't know, 15, 20 elimination races to try to get a winner with using two lanes. In reality, I think, looking back at the video, Kinzer had actually won in like the third heat.
Oh, really?
But it went on and on.
Is that the one that was out in North Carolina?
I know. I think it was at John's.
Yeah, but I mean, it was
Oh.
John's like Dash for Cash race or something, or
It could have been. It could have
Yeah.
been, because I think I have a second place trophy there or whatever. But
Yeah.
that was just an exciting moment. And then I think right about that time too, was occasionally racing PWDR, and I took my one and only championship, and in PWDR, in their term, Extreme Pro Mod.
which are bearing cars.
Right, and that same car, Hurst, was able to beat Steve Evolution's Tar Blood car, which had been, I don't know, as far as I know, undefeated for
Yeah,
years.
that car was
Whatever.
so dominant out there.
Yeah.
In fact, that car, I believe in 2009-ish, maybe 2008, something like that, that won the national championship that John holds for the unlimited cars. So I think it was called Super Pro Mod at the time. But that same car, Tar Blood, so it won that national championship. Then you edged him out for the championship
just
at the
by
end of the year.
tenths.
Yeah, and that was the same car he brought to the 2013
Right.
nationals, and he still finished top 3 with that car.
Yeah.
So that car is very fast. Yeah, the bearing cars that we have lately, I'm very proud of, and you're a huge part of that. So, but speaking of the nationals 2013, for those that weren't there or haven't heard, so we have it here in the Milwaukee area. We used my track, and the solenoid that you built for me was really slamming the gate home.
Yeah,
And-
for whatever reason, and it acted much different on the surface, that rug surface over at the hotel, than it was in your basement.
Yeah, because in my house it was on a concrete floor.
Yeah.
So on that rug, I don't know if it had a little more give or what, but it just had this bounce. And
Right.
John and Joel are like, "Yeah, we got to get this. We can't have this big bounce, this jolt."
Right.
So you were running back and forth from the hotel to your house, getting new solenoids and this and that. And
Yeah,
he's-
that was
he's soldering it on the go. Yeah.
It was funny, and because that was a 24-volt solenoid, and I won't bore you with the electrical details, but I was trying to give it a lot of energy, and with the way the circuit was, and so we decided to run home and get some 12-volt parts. The control didn't have to change, but I needed a 12-volt power supply and a 12-volt solenoid, and fortunately I have quite a stock of stuff at home, and we weren't too far from the race site, and so with some real help from Joel, and I think a little help from Five Kids, and I think Joel could have done anything mechanically.
He's a pretty handy guy.
He was quick on it, and we got it all put back together. I don't know how we still were late, I'm sure, but
Not too bad, actually.
yeah.
Yeah, we were pretty close to on time. So
Yeah, I guess on average, compared to most of the races, it wasn't much
well,
different.
yeah, things happen, I guess. So
But it worked out, and obviously, as you know, I've continued putts in that area.
yeah. So speaking of the solenoid, Mario built the one for me, and he's always coming up with new ideas, and he'll text me, and he'll say, "Hey, I just got this new part in. I'd like to try this or that." And so, to make a long story short, the latest upgrade is we have a wireless key control, like you would have
Fob.
on your
Yeah.
car. Yeah.
Yeah, it's RF control now, and that's pretty slick. Years ago when I did that first light tree, that was IR, the infrared, where you have to have line of sight between the transmitter and receiver, and obviously the RF is like what you have in your garage door, and it doesn't need line of sight, and so and it's got pretty good, I think, distance, because we tried it out here at what would have been the 63-foot track length, and that all worked out.
Yeah. So yeah, it's got a real good range. So it's really cool. And then the latest thing you were working on with John that I saw a picture of was the foot switch.
Yeah.
So that's a great idea. When we had the 63-foot race here, you remember Gravity X?
Yeah.
His cars were late in the mail, so he missed the race. But I thought, I'd like to still, run his cars and let them know how they do. And I was the only one here, so I staged them. Walked to the end of the track. I had my little remote switch on the cable, and I had to kind of hit the switch and start the filming, get that timing down. So both my hands were in use, Now the foot switch is a great idea because you can have the camera ready if you're doing this by yourself and just tap it with your foot,
Right.
and the cars will go.
Yeah, I mean, there's no technology there. But yeah, John had the same situation with what we called or he called the encore race after the last championship, Man of the Mountain. And
Because again, cars were late.
Many
to the
cars
mail,
didn't make it. Yeah, just horrible delivery from USPS. But
we could have a whole podcast
or two or three. And anyway, John was in the same situation. I think his wife was helping him or whatever, but it's real difficult doing it all. So that's when I thought, hey, just get a foot switch. He can hit with his foot and, be kind of hands-free. And so I picked up a couple of those.
Cool. That's a great idea. And, you're always putzing with that kind of stuff. As you said, it's a hobby of yours. What other hobbies do you have?
Well, I like big cars too.
Yeah, you got something in your garage, don't you?
Yeah. I think I had one picture posted about that somewhere in the lighter side section of John's forum. I have a 67 Olds 442 convertible, and I'm a card-carrying Olds Club of America guy. I've been to a lot of those meets and stuff. And when I was in late high school, I hung around with car guys essentially, and we used to work on bustle cars, strip cars, part them out and build, and my timing wasn't great because I bought that car a month before I started undergrad. And it just became crazier and crazier, and a total body off the frame restoration. But that's all of my hobbies for the most part ended when our kids were born.
I can imagine, yeah.
And so now I don't have much time for what I can steal here or there to work on Pinewood Derby or the electronic stuff. So that's all pretty far background. You get into, like I said, I'm pretty heavy into scouting, Boy Scout committee chair, um, and between the kids' sports and robotics and whatnot, I think too it's a full plate. My normal statement is that kids will consume all resources you have: time, space, money, energy, you
Yeah,
name it.
absolutely.
But you know that's fine. That's great. That's what we want. So.
Right, right. So you are Italian, and we had the pleasure of having a meal at your house. It was very good. So you got this big Italian family.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, it's our normal thing every Sunday.
Hmm.
We bring my mom over, who's like 92 now, and she still makes the spaghetti sauce. And we have pasta dinner noontime on Sundays, and um, some number of other dishes and things. But it is an important thing for us. Obviously, I grew up uh, really with a lot of Italian families that came, even though we're over here, there were a lot of first generation Italians, including my dad, that came over from Italy, extremely poor. My dad started cleaning bricks, going to school to learn the language and learn a trade, and um, he, went on to build a middle class lifestyle, became a machinist, worked at Miller Brewery, did concrete work with his brother, who also came over. And I think until I was 12 years old, we celebrated every holiday and other, Saturday, Sunday, summertime picnic with, you know, people that we considered relatives, many of which really weren't relatives, but if the other people know what this is like, everyone who came from the same town or you're connected to, you called cousin or aunt and
Hmm.
uncle and
Sure.
whatnot, and it took me years later to figure out really who was or wasn't a relative.
Yeah. And so you said your dad was a machinist. I know you've got a lot of his tools
Yeah.
that you brought over here for, gauges and testing and stuff.
Yeah, so I'm a tool freak, and it's easy to say now, but I wish I would have learned more from my dad because he knew how to do everything, and he could lathe and weld, and he had to make parts as needed, and I learned a fair number of stuff, and what I tried to pass down to my kids mostly is the troubleshooting part because once you're a homeowner, there's always stuff to fix, stuff to
Yep.
improve, and so for kids nowadays, you really got to teach the patience and look and learn and figure things out, and so that's a big part of it. But we have a lot of memories around our house of stuff that my dad, fixed up for our kids when they were small, and those are very warm memories for me.
Yeah, that's funny you say that, how you got to troubleshoot things and fix it. Now, my boy is driving now. In fact, he's got an Oldsmobile. I don't know if you
Yeah,
saw that.
I just
And
saw it.
so, yeah, but he says, "Mom, Dad, I mean, it's an Oldsmobile. It has old in it. I don't want to be like driving an old fogey car." But so it's a Olds Aurora, and it's got a V8 in it,
Yeah.
which is, I don't know if he needs that, but the exhaust on one side was kind of crooked. So, he actually took the initiative to go and fix it. He comes back and he says, "Well, I fixed that." I said, "How'd you do that?" He goes, "Zip tie." I said, "Well, that's an exhaust. If they get kind of hot, you might want to think about some kind of metal strap or hanger." So he thought about it. Then he went to the store and he bought a metal strap to hang it back on. Well, I thought that was funny. He used a zip tie. But anyway,
Yeah.
all right. Now, recently you have gotten very heavily into the street rod cars. You text me a lot with all these specs on the bodies and what you think is going to make a good candidate for a street rod. So I guess talk about that. You've got those two Vegas that are stretched out, those drag car Vegas, and those are great for the street rods.
Yeah, I guess for me, you got to focusing on the fact that I'm here to have fun because I don't expect to win championships or whatever, barring some stroke of lightning. And so I want to have fun. And the great thing about the street rides is it mixes my love for, the muscle cars and sports cars and such with Pinewood Derby, and so that's a pretty cool thing to be able to kind of blend two hobbies, and so I really took a liking to that, and I think I just used some, I don't know, a little bit of creative thinking in first finding those funny car chassis, and they've been pretty competitive for a fair bit of time. Though now they're really outclassed by the chassis that our buddy Scott makes, and people that follow that style, and so I'm going to have to improve to be competitive. It's they're not in the upper echelon anymore, but it's really a fun class, and I hope it continues. I know it's going on in other venues, so there seems to be interest in it, and I think most of the people that are been doing it for a while feel similar. They just really hope that it continues, because we have seen other classes sometimes come and go, and and it's tough. Even when I now do 3 classes, man, that stretches me to my absolute limits, and I marvel at these guys that can race in every class and have multiple classes or multiple cars. I'm sorry, and I don't know how they do that, but that's the one that I've kind of settled in on. In addition.
I mean, it does take up a lot of time to try to race multiple classes, and with 4 kids the same age, I know there's times that you'll say, "Hey, can I come over tonight?" Because basically you've got a couple of free hours, and you're a lot like me. You're tuning and tweaking until the last absolute minute, and then there's many times when Mario shows me his receipt from the USPS, he turns it in at 4:59. The lady's almost closing the door on him. So but there's been some late nights testing here because you just don't have the time you need.
Right, I have tried to tell Andy, and so I'll use this forum, to say how extremely appreciative I am of being able to come over here and tune, and more often, or several times I've come over and Andy's half asleep, sitting on the couch, kind of babysitting me while I'm just power tuning. I'll bring 8, 9 cars over to see if any of them got any speed, and just trying to as fast as possible get through it.
So then, so you'll be here late, and you'll get that out as much as you can. But one thing about Mario that is just hilarious. Let's talk about your staging technique and why you do it the way you do.
Yeah, I never really thought about it until you guys made a big deal of it. But I had in Cub Scout days built a wooden track that tailored the profile of a Cub Scout pack track. And to get the max distance for it in my basement, I had to put it in the corner of the basement, as to at least the staging portion is, which prohibits me from being able to run or to stand behind it. So I've always stage from the side of the track. And even when I came by Andy and you've got the room, I would stage from the side of the track.
I don't know how you do it, because I can't. I've tried that, and I'm like, I can't, tell if my wheels are pulled out or anything. But I guess it just must be what you're used to.
I think I'm starting to be able to go both ways now.
Yeah, and then you, so you said you've got this wooden track.
Yeah.
What about? Are you ever going to get a best track? Going to upgrade?
I have a single lane best track, and I have a multi-point timing setup for that.
Mm-hmm.
But around the time that I got that stuff, which is probably over a year ago now, our basement just went out of control, and I have remodeling to get done, and that's why I'm still coming over here at 10 o'clock at night to try to tune. But I have ambitions, like in many areas, to get that all up again, and I did get to participate in the development of that new software from
Randy?
Grand Prix from Randy, and I think that's going to be pretty slick for people that are kind of nerdy like me and want to check on the details of their cars and how they're doing. So I'm very much looking forward to that, but man, there's just so much to do.
Sure. So, what is in store for Quadad for 2015? Are you going to continue with, multiple classes? Are you going to scale back to just a couple? And then, what about the nationals? Are you going to go to that?
Well, I am very interested in going to the nationals out in Omaha, and as you know, we could potentially have our entire original Sofa King fast racing team there. Right. That would be pretty slick, even to get a picture together.
Sure.
But as you know, I'm always kind of hedging because I don't really feel in charge of my own schedule. So,
oh, you must be married.
Yeah, I think it's probably a pretty safe time. I'm between all the family and life and high adventure scouting stuff and whatnot. And not to mention work, which helps pay for all these things.
Sure.
It all takes a chunk. So I'm hoping to do that. For whatever crazy reason, I continue to beat my head against the wall and try to complete in the eliminator / mod type class. So for me, the challenge is a part of it, and so I guess I'll continue to participate TBD, depending where I can have time and can go after the challenge and the fun.
Good.
So
okay. Well, Mario, I thank you for taking the time to just give us a little background on yourself, let people get to know you a little bit, and look forward to racing with you, and both live here at the Zeebzob Speed Shop and on the proxy circuit.
All right. Thanks very much, Andy.
All right. This is Zeebzob and Mario signing off.